Frankly, I feel like I've been scammed. Scammed. Look at yourself in the mirror. You look like an old man. You don't have to be so harsh. I haven't said enough, John retorted, then stormed out, making a loud noise with his footsteps. As I watched the front door close with a loud bang, I let out a deep sigh. My name is Emily Matsushita. I'm 30 years old and have been married for 2 years. I've continued working, but over the past 6 months, my weight has rapidly increased. If I had to guess, it's probably because I've been busy at work recently and end up eating late at night. Initially, I thought I was just a little overweight, but in the past 2 months, I've even started to feel heavy. Before marriage, I was quite standard at 5'3" and 103 pounds, even considered slim. But now, I am at 5'3" and 152 pounds. Oddly, I don't feel that I've gained that much weight since I see myself every day. But now, I'm starting to worry about reaching 155 pounds. So, I kind of understand why my husband says those things. But it's quite hurtful when he says it to my face. Once one noticeable change appears, he starts to point out many others, especially about my family. He had always said it was quite rural since he first came to meet them for our wedding. But it really is rural, so I just took it as an honest impression at that time. Maybe it's because I'm generally a laid-back person and don't sweat on small issues. When something is pointed out, I do care, but after sleeping on it, I tend to think, well, it's okay. I think this is both a flaw and a strength of mine, but maybe it's also optimistic to think this way. My husband, who used to say he liked this aspect of me, has recently started saying, "That's why I dislike people raised in the countryside. They are often insensitive." My parents are quite frugal. Since childhood, I've been ingrained with the phrase, "Don't waste money." As a result, my line has become water waste. Whenever I say this, my husband calls me stingy. The family house is an ancestral home, so old that no one knows how many years it's been standing. But since I was born, it's never been remodeled. Any minor repairs were done by my father as a DIY project. Doing it yourself only costs the price of materials, he always says with great satisfaction. Of course, it's not comparable to professional work, but he's quite skilled from years of experience, and I think it's sufficient. Well, if you look closely, it's shabby, really quite shabby. But for me, it's within an acceptable range. I think as long as it protects us from rain and wind and allows a normal life, it's fine. What's up with that house of yours anyway? It's falling apart, living in such a place. It's like screaming poverty. It's not exactly poverty. My parents are just... What? They're just frugal, that's all. In fact, there's something my parents always told me not to talk about carelessly. Something I haven't even told my husband. Semantics, huh? Frugal is just an excuse for being poor? Whether my family is poor or not, it has nothing to do with our lives, does it? If your family is poor, who knows when they might come begging for money? He had even started to say, especially in the past 2 months. His harsh words seemed to be getting worse. I wonder if I deserve to be spoken to like this just because I've gained a bit of weight. Amidst this, I've been feeling unusually lethargic recently. Climbing stairs has become quite hard. I thought it was just because of the weight gain, but just to be sure, I went to the hospital and was diagnosed as being 4 months pregnant. "It's surprising you didn't notice until now," said the doctor. Now that I think about it, I did stop getting my period. With the busyness of work, the weight gain, and the complete absence of morning sickness. I hadn't realized at all. Well, when I think about it, I might have felt a bit nauseous, but I never really paid much attention. The doctor emphasized the need for me to act with the awareness of being pregnant. Knowing that a new life is growing inside me, I felt an inexplicable warmth. I was sure my husband would be thrilled. With that thought, I excitedly waited for him to come home that night. But he didn't return even after dinner time had passed. Recently, he's been coming home late due to overtime. But the only message I got from him around 9 p.m. was, "No need for dinner. I'll be late." My work had settled down, and I was doing less overtime. I had been looking forward to sharing the good news, so his late return was disappointing. He finally arrived home after midnight. We had a mutual understanding to sleep first if the other was late. So he seemed surprised to see me still up in the living room. "What, you're still awake? Listen, I have something to tell you." "What?" "I'm tired from work. Spare me any boring talk." "It's good news. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby." "What?" He looked utterly surprised, eyes wide. But he seemed frozen. "No way." "It's true. It's our baby?" "Really? Are you sure it's mine?" "What?" Now it was my turn to be shocked. I never expected such words from him. If it's not his child, then whose is it? Does he think I've been unfaithful? What are you saying? There are jokes that are okay and not okay? Of course, it's your child. The baby is already in the 13th week, 4 months along. 4 months. My husband's face changed as if realizing something, but he didn't look happy at all. I expected him to simply be happy about the baby, but being asked if it's really his child was a shock. Bringing up a child now, of all times? "What do you mean now? We're a married couple. Having a child is natural, isn't it?" "What if it's a girl who looks just like you? I can't see her as my own child." It was too cruel. I never thought my own husband would say such a thing. Shocked, I was at a loss for words. Seeing me silent, my husband quickly retreated to the bedroom as if fleeing from reality. Does he not want this child? But why? He never said he didn't want kids. It's pitiful that the father doesn't want his own child. That night, I didn't go to the bedroom but spent the night in the living room. Initially, I thought I couldn't sleep due to shock and sadness. But I fell asleep on the sofa within an hour. When I woke up in the morning light, I felt a bit better. Maybe my husband was just surprised by the sudden news. He's been busy with work and overtime lately. Perhaps that made him irritable. I've heard that many men don't feel the reality of a child until it's born. I convinced myself that he would come around to being a father once the baby is born. Telling him now to be a father might backfire. At 21 weeks, my pregnancy was becoming noticeable. Everyone around me was kind and caring, making me feel grateful for their support. That day, we had to stay late at work for inventory management. Everyone told me to go home early, but seeing my colleagues working hard, I stayed to help. After finishing work at 7 p.m., we decided to go out for dinner. My husband said he'd be working late, so I joined my colleagues. Thinking it would be a hassle to cook and eat alone at home. Then, on the street, I saw my husband with a young, flashy-looking woman. At John. It could have been a coworker or business entertainment, I thought, trying not to jump to conclusions. But the way he had his arm around her waist didn't seem like just work-related interaction. He didn't notice me and just walked away. This happened on a holiday, 2 months later. Recently, He's been eager to go out on his days off, but this day, he stayed home from the morning. Then, while I was cleaning up in the kitchen, he came up to me, took a deep breath, and bluntly said, "I don't need a woman who has given up on herself. Raise a child yourself. I want a divorce," without even looking at me. "So, that's how it is. Okay, sure," I replied with a laugh, which made him give me a puzzled look. I was thinking it might be time for that too. "Have you lost your mind?" "Actually, I've been thinking about it too. Here, the divorce papers," I said and handed him the signed divorce papers from the drawer. He was completely taken aback. After seeing him with another woman, I had immediately contacted a detective agency to investigate his infidelity. The investigation went smoothly since he wasn't very cautious. It quickly became clear that he was cheating on me with a woman I had seen him with. Of course, I had her background checked as well. She was the daughter of a mid-level construction company's president, and they met at a mixer. I was appalled that my husband went to a mixer despite being married, and the woman continued the affair even after knowing he was married. As optimistic as I am, I'm not tolerant enough to accept his infidelity. The investigation revealed that he was indeed planning to divorce me. She's not even a woman anymore. Her belly's just getting fatter, like a walrus. I can't stand being with her anymore. Why don't you just divorce her? She's worthless. Yeah, were some of the things he said to his mistress, recorded by the detective agency. I could have brought up the divorce myself, but I was curious how he would approach it. He probably imagined me breaking down and crying if he mentioned divorce. So, I decided to pleasantly surprise him with my reaction. His shock at my unexpected response was visible. Just seeing his dumbfounded face felt like a small victory. But of course, I wasn't going to let it end there. "What? Did you think I would cry and beg you to stay?" No. "Then, I'll be leaving." It was perfect timing since I was about to start my maternity leave next week. I had already packed my things, so I left for my parents' house, leaving him stunned. I had already told my parents that we might get divorced. I thought they would ask, "What are you going to do?" But they didn't say anything. My father just said, "I see." My parents welcomed me warmly when I returned home. "Are you hungry?" "Yeah." "Okay. I'll prepare something right away." "You know, Mother, what? Aren't you going to ask anything?" "About what?" "I mean, I'm getting divorced, and there's a baby on the way. If we say something, will you stop the divorce?" "No, but if you've decided this, you must have your reasons. Talk about it when you feel settled and want to. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to. You're our daughter, Emily. You won't make a wrong decision." "That's right. Besides, we need to prepare for the baby. We have to buy a baby bed and all. We're going to be busy. Parents are such a blessing. I truly want to be a parent like them." But then, the real challenge began. They started showing their doting grandparent side. Every time they went out, they'd buy something for the grandchild. Even though the baby was more than a month away, we already had a mountain of diapers. Where did the frugality of my parents go? "Did you buy more? I thought wasteful spending was forbidden." "What are you saying?" "It's for our adorable grandchild. Why skimp on money here?" "But you always told me not to waste money, that luxury is an enemy." "And what about this mountain of baby clothes? It'll outgrow them before wearing them all. Then we'll change outfits on a schedule. Babies are not a dress-up doll." As we talked like this, time passed, and I safely gave birth to a girl. My parents seem to think I'll live here with the child forever, but I haven't quit my job. I plan to take maternity leave, but I intend to return to work eventually. However, commuting to work from my parents' house will be tough. And the thought of juggling work and parenting alone is daunting. As I was contemplating this, my ex-husband contacted me. He must have thought the child was born by now and wanted to check in. I wondered if he was a bit concerned about the child. "Oh, Emily, it's been half a year, huh? Get used to living in poverty," my husband said cheerfully. His words made me realize how foolish I was to even have a sliver of hope. "What do you want?" "Just thought I'd report in. I've remarried. And guess what? She's younger and more beautiful than you. Plus, she's a president's daughter." "Oh, is that so? You're really upset, aren't you? You were just pretending to be strong during our divorce talks, weren't you? Still hung up on me?" He blabbered on, not once asking about the child who was already born. It seemed like he didn't even have the child on his mind, which made me angry all over again. "Your ex-husband got remarried. I'll accept any gifts. Oh, I forgot. You're too poor to give me anything. Just watch enviously as I live happily." What a pointless thing to report, especially when he has a child in this world and doesn't mention a word about it. I didn't want to stir things up until the baby was safely born. Now that I'm settling into life with my child, it's time to act. Since he cheated, he needs to pay a price. I told my father everything and asked him to get a lawyer. Soon after, my ex-husband came to the house, pale as a ghost. "What did you do?" "What?" "The father of my wife's company is about to go bankrupt. It's because their contract with the parent company was terminated. And I heard that your father's company is involved with that parent company. Your family's just a pool logging company in the countryside, right?" "I never said we were poor. That was just your assumption. But look at this shabby house. Anyone would think you're poor. My family has been in the forestry business for generations, owning vast lands in several mountains. True, in the remote, undeveloped areas. The land isn't particularly valuable, so this doesn't necessarily mean we're wealthy. However, during my grandfather's time, some of our land was sold at a high price for highway construction. My grandfather was a shrewd man. He used that money to expand the business. Forestry involves significant transportation costs. So he built his own transportation company and also expanded in the construction business. All the companies and subsidiaries are scattered all over the country. Our family name is now on the wealth rankings. But our family motto was to be frugal. My father has lived by this and does not lavish himself. My grandfather experienced being very uncomfortable when the land was sold at a good price for the highway construction. Many people around him, distant relatives, and people that were not so close gathered. Since then, not to tell people we have money became the rule of our house. Now, my father looks after all the companies, but everyday business is run by each company's leaders. My father only does asset management, but he was good at it, and our assets became bigger. My father is moral and dislikes anything unethical. When I told him the reason for the divorce, he visited my ex-husband's new in-laws without revealing his identity. They dishonored my daughter. I had to say something, is what he said. When he visited and said he couldn't understand how they brought up a child that knowingly has kept going out with a married man with a baby on the way, got them divorced and remarried. Surprisingly, when my father confronted them, they scoffed at him and offered $1 million in cash, thinking he came for money, and even said, "Take this and leave." My father said okay, That's how you want to play it, and left quietly without taking the money? The ex-husband's wife's family was in the construction business, so my father just told our group companies to cease all dealings with that company, or they will lose all deals with us. Things get ugly when a kind person gets mad. My plan was just to confront my ex and his wife with evidence of his affair and demand damages. I never expected things to escalate this far. That can't be true. Your father? And he's on the wealthy list. When my father gets angry, he goes all out. Using your parents' connections to get back at me, that's low. Dirty play is fine. Compared to what you've done, this is nothing. It's not comparable at all. Destroying someone's company. It's because they never built proper relationships that they fell into crisis so easily. And do you think you have the right to blame me? If I had known your family was so wealthy, I wouldn't have cheated. How could I know, seeing you living this poverty-stricken life? If you're rich, live like it. How one chooses to live is their own business. And it's all your fault for not telling me. Hearing this, I was glad I never mentioned it. It's like he's saying he cheated because we weren't rich and wouldn't have divorced if he knew I was. Such reasons make the marriage meaningless. Yo, since you're here, I should mention, I'll be claiming damages and child support. What? Claiming damages is my right. Claiming child support is the child's right. Even though you're rich, you still want to take money? These are separate issues. That's harsh. Wait, I'm the father. I have parental rights. If you want custody of the child, pay me. It felt like something snapped in my head. He didn't even ask if the child was born or know the child's gender. Yet he talks about parental rights and demands money. He must be joking. My father, who was in the back until now, stepped forward hearing this. My ex-husband's attitude changed instantly upon seeing him. Oh, father-in-law. I want to make things right with Emily. That's why I came today. For the sake of her child. Don't be ridiculous. I heard your entire conversation with Emily. How dare you show your face here after all that? Don't ever come back. Get out of here. Intimidated by my father's outburst, my ex-husband fled in panic. Later, his father-in-law's company went bankrupt. But the employees were all taken in by the companies my father manages. He didn't want to leave innocent employees and their families stranded because of personal grievances. Apparently, the father-in-law's company was notoriously mismanaged. That might have influenced my father's strict stance. My ex-husband is now blamed daily by his father-in-law for the company's downfall. Burdened with debts and responsibilities as a guarantor, he's working day and night to make ends meet. He even called me, desperately asking for a lump sum to help him with his debts. I yelled at him, hung up, and then blocked his number. However, my daughter is a true blessing. Although she doesn't have a father, I plan to raise her with all the love I can give. My parents are incredibly doting grandparents. They're even suggesting buying a luxury apartment near my workplace to live together after my maternity leave ends. Despite the extravagant plans, I remember a family motto of frugality. My parents say, discipline is the parent's job, spoiling is the grandparent's job. They even buy her fancy dresses I never had. I realize I need to be firm in raising her, especially in teaching her to be discerning about men. In any case, I'm grateful for these peaceful days, cherishing my daughter's growth. I'm determined to keep going strong.